It started with a dream I couldn't stop having. A long hallway lined with white curtains, swaying though there was no wind. At the end of it, a door, always half open. And every time I walked closer, I'd hear it. A whisper, soft and patient, calling my name. When I finally pushed the door open, I'd wake up, drenched in sweat, heart pounding like someone had been standing over me. I told myself it was stress, the mind replaying old fears. But one evening, driving home from work, I saw it. The same house from my dreams, sitting alone at the end of a quiet road, windows dark, porch light flickering, and nailed to the fence was a sign that said, "For sale." That's when the whisper came again, from nowhere. "Welcome home, Eleanor." My name is Eleanor Vale, 32 years old, an architect by trade, a dreamer by mistake. I've spent most of my life designing homes for other people. Clean lines, perfect symmetry, everything under control. But after the divorce, after the silence that followed, I wanted a place that didn't need perfection. Just something that could hold me together. When I found that house on Wren Hollow Road, it felt familiar. Like a song I'd forgotten but somehow still knew the words to. I told the agent I didn't care about the price or the repairs. She looked at me strangely, said it hadn't been lived in for decades, that the last owner died in the basement, sketchbook still in his hands. I remember smiling, pretending that didn't bother me. The day I moved in, the air smelled of dust and old rain. My footsteps echoed through rooms that felt larger than they should have been, like the walls were breathing out after years of holding secrets. I should have felt lonely, but I didn't. It was as if the house exhaled when I crossed the threshold, whispering through the cracks, "You're home now." I told myself I was imagining it, but that first night, as I unpacked boxes by candlelight, I found something written beneath the window frame. A single line carved into the wood. "We missed you, Eleanor." The first week passed like a quiet dream. The rain never stopped, but I found it comforting. The soft tapping on the windows felt like company. Each morning, I'd make coffee and sit by the tall bay window overlooking the overgrown garden. The air smelled of wet leaves and forgotten summers. I began sketching again, something I hadn't done since before the divorce. The house inspired me. Its arches, its uneven floors, even the faint stains on the ceiling. All of it felt alive, like it wanted to be remembered. Sometimes I caught myself talking to it, thanking it for the warmth, for the stillness, for letting me breathe again. At night, I'd light a few candles and read until I fell asleep to the sound of the rain. The creaks in the floorboards, the gentle groan of the pipes, they became part of a rhythm I grew to love. It almost felt like the house was adjusting to me, learning the sound of my steps, my habits, my heartbeat. For the first time in years, I thought, maybe I could be happy here. It was the 8th night when something changed. I woke up to the faint sound of humming, soft, tuneless, almost childlike. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, maybe the wind through the gutters. But then I realized it was coming from the hallway. I got up, barefoot, the floor cold beneath me. The house was darker than usual, the kind of darkness that feels thick, like it's watching. When I stepped into the hall, the humming stopped. That's when I saw it. The front door was wide open. Rain blew in, soaking the rug, curtains swaying like pale arms reaching for me. I could see my car in the driveway, lights reflecting off puddles. Empty. Still. I moved closer, shivering, and reached for the handle. The air suddenly shifted. Warmer. Closer. And then, right beside my ear, I heard it. "Welcome home, Eleanor." It was my voice. My exact tone, my breath, my whisper. I slammed the door shut and stood there, frozen, heart hammering against my ribs. When I turned back toward the living room, the lights flickered once, and every candle I'd lit earlier that night was out. After that night, I couldn't sleep properly. Every sound felt amplified. The ticking of the clock, the sigh of the wind, even my own heartbeat sounded too loud. The house felt different now. Not hostile, just aware. As if it had finally noticed me, I tried to ignore it. I buried myself in work, sketching floor plans for clients by day and pretending not to hear the faint tapping in the walls at night. But it kept happening. Soft knocks behind the plaster, footsteps in the attic when I knew I'd locked the hatch. Once, I heard the sound of papers rustling in my study, and when I went to check, my sketches were spread across the floor, neatly arranged into a circle like someone had been studying them. Then came the drawings. It started small. A single piece of paper left on my desk one morning. A rough pencil sketch of me sitting by the window with my coffee mug. Same robe, same cup, even the same chipped handle. I thought maybe I'd drawn it myself and forgotten. But then more appeared. One on the fridge, one tucked under my pillow. Each one showing me doing something ordinary. But the details, my posture, my expression, the direction of light, were too perfect, too real. Like someone had been watching me closely. By the third night, I couldn't stand it. I tore the drawings apart and threw them into the fireplace. They curled and burned, releasing a faint smell, not of paper, but of wet earth. The next morning, when I came downstairs, the drawings were back. Every single one, pinned to the walls, corners blackened as if they'd been burned before. I started checking the doors, the windows, every possible entry point, all locked. No footprints, no signs of anyone breaking in. And yet, things kept moving. A chair slightly turned. The bedroom mirror tilted. The old grandfather clock I'd never touched suddenly ticking again after decades of silence. One night, I called the real estate agent. I tried to sound casual, asking if the previous owners had left any belongings behind. She hesitated before saying, "Just some personal items. Sketchbooks mostly." When I asked who they belonged to, her voice lowered. An artist named Eleanor Vale. She lived there in the 1930s. My throat went dry. She laughed nervously, like it was a coincidence. But I didn't. Because deep down, I'd already begun to suspect something I couldn't explain. That evening, I found muddy footprints on the stairs. Barefoot. Small. They led up to my room and stopped beside my bed. My window was open, curtains fluttering gently. Outside, the rain poured down, but the mud was dry, fresh, almost warm to the touch. I told myself I was dreaming, that grief, loneliness, and exhaustion were playing tricks on me. But then, that same night, I woke to the faint sound of whispering beneath my floorboards. Not words, just murmurs like a crowd praying softly. When I pressed my ear to the wooden floor, I could hear them clearer. "Stay with us. Stay home." I stumbled back, heart racing, whispering to myself that it wasn't real. But then my phone buzzed. One new message, no number, just a picture. It was my house, taken from outside through the rain. In the upper window, the light was on, and in that light, someone was standing there. A woman in my robe, staring down at me. That's when I realized something horrifying. The house didn't just want me there. It wanted to remember me, piece by piece, thought by thought, until there was no me left at all. The next morning, I made a decision. I was leaving. I packed a single bag, grabbed my car keys, and went to the door. But when I turned the handle, it wouldn't move. Not stuck, not jammed. It simply wouldn't turn, like the house itself was holding it shut. I stepped back, trembling, whispering to no one, "Please, let me go." The silence that followed was so complete it made my ears ring. Then, from the floor above came a thud, slow, heavy, deliberate, like footsteps. I forced myself upstairs, my breath fogging in the cold air. At the end of the hallway was a door I'd never opened before. It wasn't locked, but something about it felt forbidden. When I pushed it open, dust floated in the beam of my flashlight like drifting ash. Inside was a small attic studio. An easel stood in the corner facing a cracked mirror, and beside it, a stack of old sketchbooks. My hands shook as I opened the first one. The pages were filled with drawings of the house, of the rooms, of me. My face, my clothes, my gestures, all perfectly captured in graphite decades old. Each page signed the same way. Eleanor Vale, 1933. I flipped through faster and faster until one page stopped me cold. It wasn't a drawing. It was a newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Local artist found dead in her home. Victim identified as Eleanor Vale, age 32. My eyes darted to the date, October 19th, 1933. Same day, same month. 92 years ago. A gust of air blew through the attic, slamming the door shut behind me. I turned toward the mirror and froze. In the reflection, the room looked newer, cleaner, lit by morning light. And standing behind me was a woman in a 1930s dress, her eyes hollow, her lips trembling. She looked exactly like me. Her voice came out in a whisper, barely human. "You came back like you promised." The glass cracked. Her face split into a dozen reflections, all smiling. And beneath my feet, the floorboards began to hum like a heartbeat. The house wasn't haunted. It remembered. And now, it had me again. The floor beneath me began to pulse, slow, deep, rhythmic, like I was standing on the chest of something alive. The drawings fluttered off the walls, swirling around me in a storm of graphite faces. My faces, smiling, screaming, decaying. The air turned thick, hard to breathe, smelling of wet soil and iron. I stumbled toward the door, but the handle melted beneath my hand, wood stretching, swallowing my fingers like warm wax. The house groaned. A deep sound from its bones, and the walls began to close in, bending and twisting like ribs. Through the mirror's shattered frame, I saw the woman again, the other me, walking closer, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Her eyes glowed faintly, filled with a terrible calm. I screamed, begged, clawed at the door. "You left us once," she whispered. But the house never forgets its own. The ceiling cracked open, dust raining down like ash. Voices poured out of the walls, hundreds of them, whispering, chanting, crying, layered like waves crashing in my skull. I fell to my knees as the house began to breathe, air rushing in and out of the vents in ragged gasps. Every candle in the house flickered back to life, burning with blue flame. The woman reached out a trembling hand and touched my cheek. Her skin was cold, but her eyes were full of sorrow. "You built us," she said softly, "and now we will keep you." The floor split open, revealing nothing but darkness underneath. Black, endless, pulsing like a heart. I screamed as the boards gave way and the house swallowed me whole, pulling me into its lungs of wood and memory. The last thing I saw before the dark closed in was my reflection, smiling from the window, watching myself disappear. I don't know how long it's been since that night. There's no sense of time here, only the steady rhythm of the house breathing around me. Sometimes I wake to the sound of rain, sometimes to silence so deep it feels like drowning. I wander the same rooms, touching the same walls, tracing the carvings in the wood where someone once wrote, "We missed you, Eleanor." At first, I thought I died, that maybe this was punishment or purgatory. But the truth is worse. I'm still here, alive somehow, but fading, like a drawing erased one line at a time. The house feeds on memories, on the echo of who I was. Every time I remember something from my old life, my mother's voice, the smell of coffee, sunlight on my face, it slips away faster, replaced by whispers that aren't mine. There are others here too. I feel them moving in the corners, their shapes brushing past me, soft as breath. They murmur names I almost recognize. Sometimes when the wind hits the right way, I hear footsteps in the hallway. New ones. Someone else has come. And as I stand by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass, I whisper the same words that once greeted me. Welcome home. If you ever find yourself driving down Wren Hollow Road, you'll see it. A house that shouldn't still be standing. Its windows dark, its porch sagging under the weight of years. Sometimes, if you slow down, you'll swear you see a light in the upstairs window. Flickering, like someone's still awake. People say it's empty, that no one's lived there since the 30s. But every few years, someone new moves in. Someone who says the same thing I once did. It feels familiar. They never last long. The neighbors say the house chooses who stays, and if, one night you pass by and hear humming through the rain, soft, slow, and familiar, don't stop. Don't look toward the window, because if you do, you'll see a woman standing there, her face pale against the glass, eyes following your car as it disappears down the road. And if you listen closely, really closely, you might hear her whisper, your own voice calling from inside, "Welcome home."